Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Cyber Threat Thursday. Previously I've talked about how an onion has the different layers and how that sort of represents how you can protect yourself using cybersecurity using these different layers. One of those layers is the data protection, and that includes a backup. If you've followed my previous videos, I've talked about OneDrive and how it can be configured so that your My Documents and your pictures and your desktop are automatically backed up into OneDrive, and how that protects you if you have a hardware failure. I've even talked about how you can restore different versions of the file on Tuesday. I just talked about that. So why would I be talking about a third-party backup software? The reason I'm talking about that is there's certain things that Microsoft and Google do well, but there's other things that they don't protect you from. It's really neat that they have those different file versions. It's really neat that they, have these data centers across the country to make sure that your file is in different places, so it's not just dependent on one single server dying or failing. But what it doesn't protect you from is accidental deletions and you not realizing it for 6 months. It doesn't protect you from like ransomware or hackers, or even, if you're a little bit bigger company and you have a couple employees, if somebody deleted something and then left because they were mad at you, it doesn't protect you from that. If you look at Google and Microsoft retention policies, both of them have a default of 30 days. So that's the key, is if you don't realize in those first 30 days that something is missing, there's nothing you can do about it. On Microsoft's terms of services, it even recommends a third-party backup. The NAR released a data security and privacy toolkit, and the 5 different steps here talk about what you can do to have a sound data policy. One of those is knowing what you have and scaling down, and then also planning ahead. And the planning ahead is the backup, so that you can make sure that you have those files when you need it. The communications to your client through email, all of that stuff. The scaling down is not keeping the files longer than you need. And if you have the right third-party backup, you can actually use that almost as an archival system to delete files and make sure that you limit your exposure if you do have a hack. I use and offer a product called Backupify with all of my clients. What it is an online backup system that connects directly into Google, it connects directly into Microsoft, and it backs up the system, your email and your data and your files 3 different times a day. That limits your exposure if you actually have some sort of ransomware attack. You can roll back to an earlier version from the morning. You're not losing multiple days of files and things like that. But what you can also use it for is an archival system. So if you have a data retention requirement, say of 5 years, you could actually get away with deleting files, say from 2 years ago that you don't really need anymore. And as long as you keep some sort of log of when you delete the files, you can just roll back to those and get those files, so that if you did have a problem, you only have, say, 2 years of files on your system instead of all 5 years, or worst case, 8 or 10 years. So you can utilize the system to really minimize that exposure of your client data. Overall, this is what you would call a disaster recovery plan. I'll get into that more later, but this is kind of gives you that introduction as to why the backup and all that stuff is so important. All right, I'll see you next week.